Hi everyone, my name is Anastasia Stoyanova, and today we are going to start talking about reading part 4. Finally, I keep creating the videos for you, keep doing that. And first of all, I'll talk a little bit about theory, how to approach this task, and then we'll practice together using my platform. By the way, I will put the link into the description to this video, so please go check it out. And let's get started. So first of all, part 4, this is the final part of the reading part of the CELPIP exam. And we'll talk about the task format, how to tell the author's positions apart, how to see the viewpoints, briefly look at the markers of opinion and tone, and just some main traps of this task. First of all, what can we expect on the exam? The task looks like this, so I will make myself smaller here, and here we go. It's a very long article, and I want you guys to get ready for really something difficult, because there will be so many words that are less common, less frequent in the English language, because it's a very, very specific topic. Can be any kind of economic and social issues, and people present their opinions, and we have to be able to answer some questions just like that. You see the screenshot from the official site, celpip.ca or celpip.com. You see that there are 5 questions that are based on the content of the article. And usually the first one, what is this article about? We do that last, after we look at all of the opinions presented, to be able to see what was the main point, because it can be tricky sometimes. And then the article has the same theme. However, there are several people that have different opinions or give different examples. And these 5 questions ask about particular people's opinions. So we got to be able to look at the text, see the last name, read carefully, and try to make a mental note, so to memorize what this opinion is about. And then the last part, so questions 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, are the questions that are like a comment. So imagine you read this article on a website, and then somebody left a comment, and we gotta be able to read the comment very carefully, and based on the article and something that we read in the article, we have to understand this paragraph as a whole. So please do not try to break it into sentences. So try to read it as a whole, try to understand what the person is saying, and then look back at the article and find the relevant parts. There is no going back to earlier parts. On a real exam, you will see that you have about 13 minutes for this part, and time goes fast. Let's take a look at something. So first of all, I kind of talked about the strategy already, but you do not start by reading. Yeah, I know it's a reading task, but you do not just read for pleasure, because it's a test. We are under time pressure, so we start by reading the questions, not the text, and marking the keywords. Usually, who is mentioned, then we will be able to find the relevant parts in the text, and just A, B, C, D, there will always be an option, so that's good for us. And also, the first set, we answer first because it's based on the text, but there's a lot of paraphrase and a lot of very specific vocabulary. But in most cases, we're able to eliminate the answers that are wrong. So that would be like 50-50, and then we only have 2 options left that sound logical. And then the comment and the second set, as I said, first we read the paragraph briefly, and then just kind of try to search for the relevant information in the text. Please remember, when you read and when you answer, it's not about your opinion. It's about opinion of other people. And what I see my students are doing is that sometimes they just try to memorize. Yeah, never try to memorize. Yeah, you make a mental note, but you are definitely you are tested on this ability kind of to be able to go back and see this in the text. So never mix the opinion presented with your own opinion. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, always please remember you should be able to go back and find the relevant part in the text. So try not to confuse different opinions, because you will see that usually the way the test is structured, that they show you several last names, and you got to be able to find the relevant one according to the question. So the main traps is that we start mixing opinions. You know, in one of the sources, as an instructor, as a trainer, I see that one of the tips that they give is also use the paper that they give you at the testing center, at the test center. So, and also write in your own words, or in simple words, or maybe even in your mother tongue, in your native language. Just write the main idea of each person, not to get sidetracked. Because sometimes we mix opinions. It's very easy to mix who said what. And so be careful. We gotta keep positions apart according to the last names that are presented in the text. All right? Some small things. How do we see this opinion and tone? Some words like should, must, ought to, when somebody recommends, definitely. It's kind of partially can be an opinion. Obviously, the words like believe, think, feel, I believe that, or somebody thinks that, last name, Mr. Thompson thinks that. Some kind of attitude like obviously, clearly, unfortunately, and then usually the opinion follows. So that's how we are going to be able to see the opinion. Now we will move to practice. Once again, guys, please go check the description to this video. There will be a link to English Stoyanova. That's my last name. And we developed this app based on the standards of the CELPIP exam. And if you go to this englishstoyanova.ca/app/, you will be able to do this task together with me using the platform and practice some more, because we created many tasks for you to use and to practice. So it looks like this. And today we'll be working part 4. Yes, focusing on part 4. We'll be working with part 4. However, I want to point out that I have been creating videos regarding each part of the test, and you're more than welcome to go check them out on my YouTube channel. Listening, reading, writing, speaking, you will find them all. So today we'll just focus on reading for Viewpoints, and you can try the first one for free, and then the rest will be as part of the paid subscription. So you could go and try them out. Today I'll talk about test 2, and I have my own pro version here, my own subscription that I am just showing you here. And we'll see that we'll be using the answer key. I will use it as a reference. However, how you work with this platform, when you click start, the timer starts also together with you. So be careful, because you only have 13 minutes. Today we'll probably use a longer period of time, just because we'll discuss together and I'll show you the answer key. However, the answer key that you will see, it will appear at the very end. So when you do it on your own, you just start, you do the task, and then you click review the answers, and you will see the same answer key that I'll be showing you. This is just something I opened in one more tab, just to be able to show you the answer and for us to be able to discuss it together. All right, so let's start. The text looks like this. So you see it's a quite a long text, but that's fine. This is the way it's going to be on your real exam. And the first 5 questions that we have, you see, they are based on the article. And this question here, we normally do it last. The article is primarily about. We take a look at it, we keep it in mind as we read, as we go through the text. So for example, here we have the article is primarily, so main focus is about the unresolved debate over how to fix Canada's underfunded residential care, financial difficulties experienced by private long-term care operators. So we already understand that, it's going to be about care system. So private versus public, probably, yeah. Differences between provincial and federal approaches to pandemic recovery, the personal struggles faced by one family caring for an elderly relative. So we kind of understand the topic by looking at the options. However, we got to keep reading. We cannot just choose right now, because if you only read one paragraph, you have no idea, is this about that or about that? So after you consider all of the questions, because each question asks you about a specific person and their opinion. So you will be able to move through the text, to read the text step by step. So for example, here, it's more like an intro usually, presents the context for you. It's about a family, and you can go ahead and pause the video and give yourself a brief minute, I would say, time yourself just to read the intro. And normally it's the first two paragraphs. So the first paragraph, give yourself a minute, pause the video, and just read the intro. Okay, so just for the sake of practice, I'll ask you to pause the video at some points just to save time. So once you did that, we are ready to move on. Then we'll come back to the intro because it will give us also the idea, as you have read probably. So a long-term care sector, there is a crisis driven by inadequate public funding, and a lot of people will be against and in favor of implementing some changes. And we see the next question, so we never lose time during this test. It asks about Dr. Ramirez. And according to Dr. Ramirez, facilities run for profit are more likely to do what? So here we go in the text. We should be able to spot the last name, Dr. Nia Ramirez, and her or his opinion. All right, so their opinion. Health policy researcher at McMaster University. And again, you can pause the video now and just read this paragraph, okay? And then we look at the options. So go ahead and pause the video, read this part here. And you see here, whatever we have in the quotation marks, we have commodified the care of our most vulnerable citizens. Facilities operating under for-profit models consistently post worse outcomes on measurable indicators, infection rates. So what is she saying? What is she saying? She's saying here, so she's kind of criticizing, right? And it's interesting because she says that if such facilities gain money, so for-profit facilities, it's actually, it's bad, right? It's not like we expect to pay money and get better results, but it's not the case. So that's what this person is talking about here. And if you look at the options, take a look, which one sounds like the closest choice? Charge residents higher fees while providing equivalent levels of personalized care. Is it equivalent or not? We just said that. It's actually worse. And this is a very important word here, worse. Exceed, so you see it's not equivalent. We cannot choose this one. Exceed provincial inspection standards due to reputational pressure from shareholders. Is there anything about that? Check this out. Attract higher caliber nursing staff. We got to be able to choose the answer that very, very accurately represents what this paragraph said. And in this case, it's about produce measurably worse health results for residents than publicly managed homes. We could see in the text, it's stated right here. By the way, today I will just show you the answer key. Once you do your test and you click next, you can review results, yeah? And you will see the same thing that I will be showing you in the tab here. So right now we discussed question 2, and you will see this once you do the whole test. Right now, this is just for the purpose of discussion and practice because I'm teaching you the strategies. I'm showing you how to work with the text, how to work with this part. So in this case, you see that the correct one is 4. So that's what we chose, the fourth option. and there is an explanation, the same one that I showed you in the text. And there is, for the other options, let's say you chose number 1, right? And it's wrong. We were trying to design the platform, the practice platform for you in that way that it explains why not, right? For example, here it says the article does not discuss the fee structures or claim care is equivalent. So it doesn't say. Dr. Ramirez explicitly argues quality is worse for for-profit settings. So for every option, you can even pause the video, and if you chose something else while we were discussing, so please pause the video, read the explanations. Just in order to save time, I'm not like reading every explanation, why not, but I'm just letting you know that this is the screen, the tab that you will see once you are done with the practice. So it explains why each answer is correct or incorrect, all right? But now we are going to move forward and do question 3. Remember that we'll come back to this one once we do the rest. For now, disregard the timer because we are discussing together. I'm explaining the strategies, but of course, you gotta consider the timer when you practice on your own, and of course, when you are in a real test setting, because this is very important. You have only 13 minutes, so it goes very fast. You gotta be able to read faster and so on. And the strategy is like that, as pretty much as I said, you find the name in the question and you find this person and you read what do they say, what's their viewpoint, try to find the paraphrase. So for example, here we have Edward Sharma's position in the article can best be described as, and we have 4 options. You can just briefly look what they're saying and then try to match. So right now, pause the video, read what Edward Sharma thinks regarding this problem, and then we'll try to match the options. So in this case, what do we find? We see this, again, quotation marks are very important. This is what you're going to see on a real test as well. We need a federally legislated staffing standard. Staffing meaning people who work there, yes, so how many people? A minimum of 4 hours of direct care per resident per day. And we need it immediately. Also important thing, okay? And then Sharma gives the examples of the countries just to support their opinion, their viewpoint. So in this case, if we look at the options, and once again, you can pause the video if you want and read the options and try to decide for yourself which option you would choose, okay? Which option you would choose if you were on a real exam. And we have firmly in favor of binding national rules to guarantee minimum care. Okay, it sounds about right. Yes, just to double check. Cautiously optimistic will eventually resolve. Does he really say that? Skeptical? Does he really say skeptical? Actually, I would say Sharma is more positive, and this person wants it as soon as possible. We need it immediately, they say. Primarily concerned with improving the financial sustainability of the long-term care sector. Is actually a concern of somebody else. If we keep reading the texts, this is the concern of Sandra Olsen. So which one would you choose? The correct answer would be the first one. And let me show you the explanation here. So we have firmly in favor. Why? Because Sharma calls for a federally legislated staffing standard. This is what I showed you in the text. And this is the advocacy, meaning support. Please remember this vocabulary, this word, because to advocate for something means to support. You will see this word a lot. And then for every other option, if you chose something else, you have the explanation why not. Okay? So for example, here, because really we have that skeptical that international comparisons offer useful lessons. You gotta remember the word skeptical. It's not a positive, right? Skeptical is like doubting. It's like trying to think, oh, is it right? Is it wrong? So in fact, this person draws positively on international examples, okay? So you cannot say skeptical. And for every answer, you see, for example, primarily concerned with improving the financial sustainability. This is the other person's concern, Olsen's concern, not Sharma. So for every answer, once you do that, once you click next and review answers, you will be able to see our explanations that are very logical and based on the text. So, but now we'll move on to the next one. Now we have the contrast of Sharma and Olsen. So Sharma and Olsen would most likely disagree about, in order to be able to contrast, what are they going to disagree about? You remember what Sharma said, what this person said. We need federally legislated staffing standard, okay? Now we need to read this paragraph here about the opinion of Sandra Olsen. So please pause the video, read this carefully. Give yourself 1 minute. Remember, you gotta be very, very fast, right? Try to understand what's the main idea of Olsen. So in this case, you see that Olsen says that operators are already running on margins of 2-3%, impose rigid staffing floors without addressing the underlying economics, and you risk mass facility closures, which helps no one. So Olsen advocates instead for incremental provincial reforms tied to transparent performance reporting and targeted capital investment. So it's a little bit different, right? First of all, it's like addressing underlying economics. So it's not just like how many hours people spend per patient. So it's something else. And what would they disagree about? Is it about the COVID-19? Was it the main focus of the question? Probably not, right? Probably not. Long-term care residents deserve higher standard of daily support. But remember, the question is disagree. Okay, provincial governments should be required to publish performance data for individual care homes. Mandatory national staffing requirements would ultimately benefit or destabilize the long-term care system. So remember, something should be in common. What would they disagree about? Try to choose your answer. If you were on a real test, what would you choose? And I will tell you that the correct answer is this one, okay? Because let me show you the explanation here. Sharma insists that we need 4-hour care minimum and immediately. Olsen says that imposing rigid, meaning strict, staffing floors without addressing the underlying economics risks mass facility closures. So this is very clear point where two opinions are in conflict. This is how it works, right? But in order to be able to see that contrast, you should read what Sharma said, what Olsen said, reread that. And also, there are some explanations why 1, 2, or 3 are wrong. Please pause the video and read the explanations if you need. Okay, and I will move on to question 5 with you, and then we'll go back to the first question here. So you see here, the article most likely implies that meaningful long-term care reform in Canada. And usually, for this one, we need to go back, we need to read the last paragraph, maybe go back to the first ones, just overall understanding, and the question about implication. So meaning it's not directly stated, but more like article is hinting. And read the closing sentence carefully here. You may want to pause the video. Whether Canada can reconcile the urgency of advocates like Sharma with the fiscal caution urged by operators like Olsen remains the defining question. And for families like Colette Haddaz, the answer cannot come soon enough. What do we understand from this sentence? So we have fiscal caution. We have the keyword such as urgency. Yeah, urgency. So some people say we need to do something as soon as possible, right? And we have 4 options. please pause the video and read them and think, okay, what would I choose if I was doing the test right now? Will be achieved primarily through the voluntary adoption. Was there something about voluntary adoption? Requires eliminating the for-profit model. Eliminating means get rid of this. Was this mentioned or not? Was this mentioned based on the whole text? Depends on redirecting pandemic relief funds already allocated to the healthcare sector by the federal government. Is unlikely to happen without resolving deep tensions between financial constraints and the demand for higher care standards. This one is the closest to what the text says. Let me show you the explanation here. Okay. Closing sentence frames the central tension as whether urgency can be reconciled with fiscal tension, meaning money problems, and do something ASAP as soon as possible. And it's unresolved, so this implies that reform is contingent on bridging the gap, supporting this option. And then if you chose something else, please pause the video and reread. Maybe I can make it even slightly bigger. Here we go. That's much better. Slightly bigger, the explanation here. Here we go. Pause the video. And now I am moving on. Oh, okay. It made it bigger, my screen here. Maybe it's not a bad thing after all. Okay, this one, what we have chosen. All right, now I think we're ready to move back because we read everything. We can even look back at the first two paragraphs if we need. What is this primarily about? What is the article primarily about? Remember that primarily means main focus. So for example, here we have unresolved debate over how to fix Canada's underfunded residential care system. Sounds about right. Double check the rest, because this story was mentioned, but it's not the main focus, okay? Personal story here at the very beginning. Differences between provincial and federal, I wouldn't say so, because it's not structured around the comparison, right? Some things are mentioned as the context. For example, I don't know, the pandemic is mentioned as the context, but it's not the primarily about, primary focus meaning main focus. It's not. And it's not just about the financial difficulties, because only one person, Sandra Olsen, raises this issue of margins, but not all of them. So I would say this one, and let me show you here in the answer key, and I made it bigger here. The article is primarily about, and the correct answer is number 1. The article frames multiple expert viewpoints around the question of what reform is needed in long-term care, ending with the observation that reconciling urgency with fiscal caution remains the defining question. So, there is a problem, it remains, it's unresolved, all right? Unresolved, so it's not solved, it's ongoing, and there's not enough money, and it's a problem. Okay, so this is the paraphrase, remains the defining question. All right, and of course we took our time, we discussed in detail. This was only the first part. I want to show you this comment part, and normally the way it works on the exam, once you're done with this text here, you should not be afraid to go back to it and reference it. But what you do with this, first, you quickly give yourself like 30 seconds to read this paragraph, ignoring the gaps, all right? And I made it bigger so we could read. On the platform, you can always regulate how you want it. You want it bigger, smaller. So for example, here we have this debate. You can pause the video and just read silently. I will read quickly out loud. This debate raises some truly what kind of questions about how we value essential services. I find, and then probably you got to reference the specific person, like whose position, most persuasive. And then the explanation, particularly the argument that chronically underfunded systems inevitably compromise care quality. So in this case, we need to find this argument. Who gave this argument in order to be able to choose the correct position here, all right? The evidence that is especially alarming deserves far more public attention. What kind of evidence was in the text? That was very important. And then it explains, by contrast, meaning this evidence is contrasted with Olsen's assertion, meaning statement, that gradual reform is sufficient. And then the author writes, strikes me as, some opinion, ultimately policymakers must. So, if Canada is to maintain a healthcare system that serves all residents equitably regardless of postal code. Are you ready to discuss this one? So, first of all, we are opening this. We have urgent, trivial, entertaining, predictable. So, of course, this article is quite serious. It's not entertaining. It's not trivial, meaning very simple and something that can be solved easily. So, from these, we see that urgent makes more sense, all right? Just in the context, because the reader's comment engages seriously, and it's a crisis involving deaths and so. So we are choosing the word that fits into this context quite clearly. By the way, here I think we also have, let me show you the explanations, right? Here we go. You can pause and you can read the explanations, why or why not. If you were to choose something else, why not? Okay? So we made it very, very easy for you to do this on your own, to practice on your own with all the explanations on the platform. Okay? Let's move on to the next one. I find, and then somebody's position most persuasive, particularly the argument that chronically underfunded systems inevitably compromise care quality. Underfunded system, it means that not enough money. Who talked about the money? Not enough money, compromise care quality, not enough people, not enough money. Who talked about that? Remember that we had this argument, chronically underfunded. Who said that? Maybe I'm just showing you. We had Ramirez. You can pause and reread. And also during the exam, do the same thing. Pause, reread, but very quickly, of course. And then we have the evidence is that. And also there is the evidence here. And we have position Olsen's, Haddad's. Remember that Haddad was just the example here, right? And actually, what would you choose? And I will show you. Read again. We have Haddad's. Was there anything mentioned? Chronically underfunded systems inevitably compromise care quality. Was it Olsen's? We had Olsen here. It's more about criticizing, imposing hours, yeah? Rigid hours, rigid floors and stuff. So, and it was Sharma's and then the inspectors. Just like a random option sometimes. If we're lucky, we get something easy like that. Yeah. So, but anyway, the correct answer here is Sharma's. Let me show you why. So Sharma, the comment endorses the argument. Yes, endorses. So saying that this is the problem, right? If we don't give money and care quality goes down, right? And Sharma said we need to do it immediately. We need to make the reforms happen, reform standards happen. And also, if we don't do that, we will have the consequence. The inspector was not mentioned. No such thing. Again, it's very easy. If you get something like that, we are lucky. We can just eliminate this answer. Haddad's is just a family member. It was like a personal story, personal anecdote at the very beginning. It's not a policy advocate, right? So we cannot choose that. And then Olsen says we need to do it gradually. But the comments, next sentence, criticizes this view as insufficient, describing it negatively. So the reader cannot simultaneously find Olsen's position most persuasive and then attack this position, okay? So that's why, because we see that by contrast, yeah? So remember we are contrasting Olsen and Sharma. Already we had that. Contrasting Olsen and Sharma. We had this, that they would disagree. Sometimes it's quite easy to kind of go back and see that. So, but you got to keep reading. That's why I said the strategy for this part is that first you read the paragraph very quickly and then you go back if you need. So the evidence that, what kind of evidence? Especially alarming and deserves more public attention. So remember what kind of evidence, and remember alarming and needs more attention. So it's not just any evidence that we had in the text, right? Because everything here was mentioned, but what's most alarming is that for-profit homes recorded far higher resident death rates than municipal facilities, right? This makes sense. Let me show you here. Let me show you here. The Ramirez cited this, right? And this one is especially alarming, yeah? Because, sorry. Oh, happens. Sorry, guys. Several European countries adopted staffing standards more than 10 years ago. This is just as a supporting example for reform. It's not an, it's an international comparison rather than Canadian finding, right? Something that would provoke the alarm the reader describes. So we need to choose something that really would shock everyone, right? That would be a Canadian finding, right? So what else was here? Khaled Haddad had to take unpaid leave to supplement her mother's care. This is very good detail, but it's not a statistic or it's not a finding. Because here the comment says we need far more public attention, suggesting that it's a database or some kind of systemic piece of evidence, not just a story. So careful with the way they word it. Sanders Olsen facilities operate across 2 provinces with very thin profit margins. Just a factual detail. It's a financial constraint, not evidence of dangerous or alarming care outcome. So it does not fit the comments framing of something deserving urgent public attention. All right? So careful with that. So once you choose something, you got to reread and make sure it makes sense just in the grand scheme of things, right? Meaning in this paragraph as a whole. Yeah, and then it says, by contrast, Olsen's assertion that gradual reform is sufficient strike me as what? Is it a good thing or not? Gradual, meaning it will take time, but it's fine. Probably not, yeah? Because look, if we look at the options, these options here and here, the first one and the third one, financially astute, meaning it's great, well-grounded, it's a positive, right? But actually, if we think about it this way, so the reader, the commenter, supports urgent reform. And we could see that because they talk about Sharma's position. So meaning the reader would criticize Olsen. And we need here something negative, logically. So that would be dangerously short-sighted, meaning it will not consider the future consequences if we don't act right now. So this would be the correct answer. And let me also show you, and again, please pause the video if you want to reread, because here we see the reader supports urgent reform, okay? And would logically criticize Olsen's preference for gradual change as failing to address the severity of the crisis quickly enough, making it dangerously short-sighted. And it's appropriate in this context. If you choose something like that, it would be like a compliment, positive, well-grounded, also positive. But we need negative, we need a criticism here, all right? And it would contradict the reader's stated alignment with the other with Sharma's reform, right? Because the reader endorsed Sharma's reform. And technically complex, this is just not a critical evaluation, so careful with the overall language. We're almost done, guys. We have the last question. Great. And let's take a look at it. Ultimately, policymakers must, if Canada is to maintain a healthcare system that serves all residents equitably, regardless of postal code, what must they do? We have enact. You can pause the video if you want. I'm just showing you. Enact enforceable care standards and pair them with sufficient public funding. Transfer full responsibility for long-term care oversight to municipal governments. Why? Yeah. So careful. Commission further independent research before committing to any specific course of action. We'll see. Encourage private operators to voluntarily improve their internal reporting processes. What does it say here? If Canada is to maintain a healthcare system that serves. Remember what was the main idea of the text? Have the standards and get the money to implement those standards, right? And the most logical one that the text has is the first option. And let me also show you the explanation to this one. We have two main arguments. Sharma said, okay, we need staffing minimums and the critique also that funding is not enough, right? And this is like a conclusion of the reader's pro-reform stance. Because remember, the reader supports the reform. So in this case, when we work with the comment, we need to understand. And again, if you have time, you need to reread if it all makes sense to you as the whole. Because Sharma's position persuasive. We chose Sharma's position, the explanation, and then by contrast, Olsen's assertion, like it's not good, it's not enough, yeah, if we just drag it on gradually and so on. And then based on this opinion, we make this conclusion, and I hope it makes sense to you. If you have chosen something else, take a look. By the way, so I will show you that once you check everything, you also have this here, and you have the text also. You can click and take a look at the whole text again, reread, and I will show you. So we click next, practice completed, and we click review answers. Here we go, hooray! And you will get the same thing I was showing you all along. Yeah, I was showing you the correct answers during our practice, just for the convenience, yeah? But of course, when you practice on your own, you want to complete the answers and then check them. If you want to do the way I did, you just open, the same task in the tab, click review answers. Even if you have not chosen anything, it will show you the answers, right? But I suggest that you do the task, you click review answers, and then you get all of the explanations, and then you go back and you read again, you read the explanation, you read again if you want to work with the text. I also recommend when you work with this part on the platform, keep track of new vocabulary. Even if this vocabulary is more specific, is more complicated, this is the way you learn. Let's say you do 5 texts like that, and you will see that it gets easier and easier because some of the words that are more formal, let's say the word, implemented. Yeah, you don't know this word, imagine. You write it down, you see it in one text, and then in the second text, and then in the third, and then it becomes easier because you accumulate your vocabulary like that. You gather your vocabulary like a sponge. So I highly recommend keeping track of the words. Even maybe traditionally, in a traditional way, just write it on a piece of paper, translate it into your native language. Or if you want, you can use the apps, create cards with the vocabulary, like Quizlet app that I use also, that I recommend and use as a learner of different other languages, so you could use that. You could, for any language like French, English, any other language you learn, just to keep track of all the vocabulary, okay? And this was the platform. Just like that, if I click here, practice, you will see that on the platform. you have all of the parts that you could practice. Listening is just the way you will have that on a real exam. The same way with reading, writing. Writing checks your writing, gives you the score. I checked everything. It's according to the criteria. This is the way we created. According to the official criteria, this is the way we did that. Very, very accurate. The same with speaking. So I highly recommend, please go check it out. I will put the link, this link here, English, and then Stoyanova. That's my last name because it's my project, my biggest project, .ca/app. You can try it for free. Give yourself a chance to prepare for this exam, all right? And it's a great, great platform. We also have, by the way, just want to show you just here, once you finish, you have the dashboard, you have practice mode as well. Oh, you have mock exams. You could practice the whole exam, and you will see your scores. It's all the official CELPIP format. It gives you the detailed feedback. If you need to, let's say you're practicing something and you want to practice a bit more, maybe you want to take a look at, I don't know, like strategies once again, okay? When you practice here, once you're done practicing, and let's say you want to practice a bit more, you open part 4 course lesson, okay? That will become available and alongside all of the other lessons. And in this lesson, step by step, I walk you through the strategies. It's more detailed than this video, and I highly recommend purchasing our subscription. Give yourself this chance to prepare to get a good score from the very first time you take the test. All right? Because the strategies that I put here into this course are very, very detailed. And we have this listening mastery, also very detailed strategies. We have reading, we have speaking, writing. For every part, you get the full strategies, you get all of the useful phrases for every part of the test, for speaking, for writing, and some other related resources. So please go check them out. Very useful templates, very useful stuff. And it's very affordable. It's like, oh my God, the price is like, a price of 2 coffees, right? So please go purchase, support my work. I would highly appreciate it, guys, truly. And I wish you well. I wish you all of the success during the test. And I hope you enjoy your life in Canada. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.